Competencies and Global Talent Management. Phase 2-3, TM at MSF 3.1 Organization. Overview. Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, is comprised of 24 associations coordinated by MSF International, whose secretariat is based in Switzerland. It is a neutral non-governmental body, largely funded by private donations. Established in 1971 with the purpose of delivering emergency medical care to individuals caught in crisis due to natural disasters, armed conflict, and epidemics, MSF does not take sides in armed conflicts, but does speak out publicly where it finds that aid systems are not being utilized adequately or are being diverted for political reasons. It employs a large number of health professionals and logistical and administrative staff to achieve its mission. MSF employs both expatriates and predominantly locally hired staff. A definition of talent and TM has just been introduced at MSF and is in an early phase of implementation without, as yet, formal rules, practices, and policies. According to one of our interviewees, people have integrated what they believe the organization does. It is something very implicit and sometimes very informal. This informal approach of identifying talents leads to a lack of diversity, evidenced by the fact that most expatriates at MSF are Europeans. A more decentralized system, more based on explicit criteria and with greater staff ownership, would help to overcome that. MSF's HRM policies have traditionally been focused on ensuring that it has the people and the skills necessary to carry out its work in the field and that it does not fall foul of local employment laws. Most MSF staff, 90% or more, are contracted locally, so recruitment is decentralized. Staff are usually employed for one project and they leave at the end of the project. Therefore, turnover is high, with MSF continuously starting new projects. Recruitment is, therefore, an ongoing activity. Since it is hard to predict the length of many projects, employees usually get one-year renewable contracts. Recently, MSF has realized that it needs to invest in talent and TM to reduce problems such as high turnover. Many employees are unaware of how the organization manages talent since TM is not formalized, so that even people identifying talent might not be aware that what they are doing is a part of TM. And talents are often subjectively evaluated. Supervisors might recommend someone for a mission, but the criteria for such recommendations are implicit. The trouble is that nobody confronts anyone else on what the criteria are. They say, oh, look, I think this person will be highly suitable to go and take up this job. But based on what criteria? What is it that we are looking for? According to another interviewee, the organization perceives talents as those who have gone on more than one or two missions. She adds that retention is a serious problem, which means investing a lot of resources into a person who only goes for one mission does not make much sense. At MSF, TM is exclusive and informal, but some in the organization want it to be inclusive. Main focus of TM. To assure its employees of fairness, MSF wants an objective system outlining and communicating the desired skills and comparing employees' existing skills with them. Actually, what we are aiming for is to have something a little bit more structured where we all agree on some criteria. Otherwise, it becomes too subjective. We need to identify the ones that are particularly promising that we want to invest in. TM initiatives at MSF were started originally with the aim of improving succession planning. We are an emergency organization, so it is hard to convince anyone to do anything. If it is not urgent, succession planning is very important and very quickly becomes urgent if someone leaves. So this is how we framed it. But in the future, my vision of TM would be something that is much more, but we are still very far from that. One of the interviewees who had worked for other not-for-profit organizations argued that practice is becoming closer to that of the private sector in areas such as talent identification and succession planning. She argued that TM at MSF is still based on defining competence on the basis of experience, whereas TM at the NFP, where she worked before, was more structured and explicitly communicated. In her opinion, big corporations have even more structured programs with better resources and desired employee behaviors outlined. A particular problem of TM at MSF is to manage dual career couples. In the medical profession particularly, it is common to find both partners involved in medicine, but with each engaged in their own careers. The challenge with expatriate assignments is to accommodate the career needs of the partner. For MSF, it is rare that both partners are doctors and/or nurses, which would make it easier to move them together. Furthermore, MSF wants to ensure that its employees are committed to their work rather than being dependent on their partners. It has been argued that trailing partners play an important role in ensuring the success of expatriate man-agers, 16, and although there may be reasons to be suspicious of these suggestions, they do have an influence. However, since MSF assignments might require expatriates to go to conflict-ridden areas, it is not always possible for expatriates to take their family along on their assignments. Attracting talents, MSF realizes that salary and benefits are usually major factors that attract candy, dates to work for an organization. However, matching compensation and benefits to external markets is not a priority for MSF. They pay well below the going market rate so that the organization is clear that people are coming for the work, not the cash. We can't really afford to be competitive with the private sector, but we do at least want to make sure that we give people conditions that are sufficiently compatible so that they are willing to stay. People come also for the value of the work, and that, in a sense, there has to be a balance. But although MSF is not looking to compete with other organizations on the basis of salary, it still needs to attract talent. At MSF, according to one of our interviewees, 2 reasons for the attractiveness of the organization are the opportunity of receiving a high responsibility post even at a very young age, and the fact that employees can have a say in where they want to be deployed. Developing talents, MSF, identifies talents generally informally, but also through formal performance appraisals and annual seminars. HR managers offer those who have been identified as talents new opportunities in the form of bigger or more complex jobs, including senior managers or the people we would consider might be senior managers in 1 to 3 years. We look at how they are doing in a particular job. So, for example, would they be ready to take a senior job? So we look at the skills required, and then we identify who seems to be most promising. Global talent management in the not-for-profit sector. 7. Most of the training at MSF is on-the-job training, including technical as well as managerial training. In addition, there are seminars. We will have 1 week with them where they can express their concerns or their opinions and their ideas, but they also learn from each other, and they learn from us, and we learn from them. This is very important to their professional development. Retaining talents. Retention is the biggest challenge for MSF. The selfless rationale works for many people at first, but it is difficult to maintain for an extended period, particularly when employees start a family. Retention applies to both local talent and expatriates. International mobility is often associated with increased stress and less support. MSF clearly states on its website, living conditions in the field, security, housing, etc., make it difficult for field staff to be accompanied by children or partners who are not participating in the program. Thus, expatriates might need to leave their partner and children behind, and this becomes increasingly difficult over time. According to one of our interviewees, once they have children, they really think hard whether they want to continue. I was just talking to a colleague here this morning, and I said, "Would you go back to the field?" And he said, "Listen, Now I have a little boy. I don't want that kind of a life. So we lose a lot of people for this reason. Since other organizations offer better compensation and less stressful and risky work environments, there is always somewhere for the talent to go. Medical staff who have worked at MSF are highly marketable. Recruiters are impressed by people who have, at least for a time, sacrificed salary and working conditions to help people in risky and sometimes dangerous situations. MSF's website clearly states the following: to reach those who need our help the most, we often work in conflict and post-conflict regions. MSF staff may live and work in insecure environments. MSF is aware of the problems involved in retaining talents. Our interviewees suggest this can be improved through better performance management and more dialogue with people regarding their performance in order to avoid people quitting simply because no one from HRM has taken the time to sit down with them for a conversation. Other interviewees believe that retention can be improved by acknowledging the efforts made by its employees. Use of technology. Or interviewees felt that some of MSF's systems are outdated and noted that performance records are kept on Excel sheets, so they are hard to analyze. In training and development, MSF does provide some e-learning opportunities, but our interviewees were worried about the impersonal nature of e-learning.